The sirens wailed through the cold night air as flashing red and blue lights painted the empty streets. In the back of the ambulance lay a small, motionless boy, his pale face framed by a mess of chestnut hair. His clothes were torn, and his arm hung limp under a blanket stained with mud. Beside the ambulance, a German shepherd with the word K9 stitched on its black harness barked frantically, pulling at its handler's arm as if trying to climb into the vehicle. No one could stop the dog's cries. It had been there when the boy was found, hidden under a collapsed shed after a violent storm, and now refused to be separated from him. The boy's pulse was faint, his breathing shallow. The world had turned into a blur of urgency and fear. This was not just another rescue. It felt like something deeper, like a thread of destiny pulling the two lives together. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unbreakable loyalty of animals, please like this video. Subscribe to Positive Tales and share it with your friends. Your support helps more stories like this reach hearts around the world. At the hospital, the emergency team rushed the child through the double doors. The dog whined, pacing at the entrance until a police officer, the K9's handler, spoke quietly to the staff. After a tense discussion, they allowed the dog inside, sensing the unusual bond already forming between the injured boy and the animal. The boy's name was Noah. He was only 9 years old and had been missing for nearly 12 hours after his family's car had swerved off a rural road during the storm. While his parents were rescued earlier, Noah had been thrown from the vehicle, landing far from the crash site. It was the K9 named Ranger who had followed the boy's scent for miles through rain and mud, barking until rescuers found him half buried under debris, barely conscious. Now Ranger trotted silently alongside the gurney, his amber eyes fixed on the boy's still face. As the hours passed, doctors worked to stabilize Noah. They spoke in low tones, monitoring his blood pressure, stitching wounds, and treating a mild concussion. Through it all, Ranger refused to leave. He sat by the door of the treatment room, head resting on his paws, ears flicking at every sound. Nurses whispered about the strange sight, a highly trained police dog sitting like a guardian angel outside a child's room. Even the officer who handled Ranger had never seen him act this way. This wasn't protocol, but it felt wrong to pull the dog away. Something about the boy seemed to have awakened an instinct deeper than training. Noah's condition was critical. The trauma of the accident, combined with exposure to cold, left his body weak. For days he drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes murmuring words only Ranger seemed to understand. When Noah's eyes fluttered open, the first thing he saw was not the fluorescent hospital lights, but Ranger's watchful face beside the bed. The boy's trembling hand reached out, and the dog pressed his muzzle gently into it, breathing warmth into his fingers. That moment was like a silent promise, one life holding on to another, refusing to let go. As news of the unusual vigil spread, hospital staff began noticing changes in Noah. Whenever Ranger was near, the boy's heart rate steadied. His breathing became less erratic, and his nights were calmer. The doctors, initially skeptical, allowed more interaction. They noticed the boy's nightmares eased when Ranger rested his head on the bed, and his blood pressure improved when he stroked the dog's fur. In a sterile ward filled with machines and beeping monitors, Ranger became a living medicine, his presence anchoring Noah to hope. Outside the hospital room, life was not easy. Noah's parents were struggling. His mother's arm was in a cast, his father's ribs were fractured. They were overwhelmed with medical bills and guilt, unable to stay constantly by his bedside. Ranger filled the void, becoming the steady heartbeat Noah needed. The officer who handled Ranger also felt torn. Officially, Ranger was a working dog trained for search and rescue, not therapy. But watching the boy's fragile fingers curl into Ranger's fur made the officer question everything he knew about the job. This wasn't just about duty. It was about compassion. Weeks passed. Noah began to recover, but his spirit was still fragile. He rarely smiled, and he avoided speaking about the night of the accident. Yet every morning, Ranger appeared by his bed with a wag of his tail, nudging him to sit up, to try again. Hospital staff started scheduling therapy walks in the courtyard, where Noah, still in his gown and wheelchair, would feel the sun on his face while Ranger walked beside him. At first, Noah barely responded. Then slowly, he began talking to Ranger, telling him stories, whispering his fears. The dog would listen, eyes soft, ears alert, as if understanding every word. One afternoon, something extraordinary happened. A nurse wheeled Noah into the courtyard. Ranger trotted alongside as usual. But instead of sitting quietly, the dog stopped, turned to face Noah, and nudged his wheelchair forward with his nose. Noah hesitated, then placed his feet on the ground. Supported by the nurse, and with Ranger steady at his side, he took his first steps since the accident. Tears streamed down the nurse's face. Doctors who had doubted his recovery watched from the window, stunned. This was not supposed to happen yet. Noah's legs had been too weak, but somehow, with Ranger there, he found the courage and strength. From that day on, Noah's progress accelerated. He began physical therapy with Ranger always present. He laughed again. He started drawing pictures of a dog with a superhero cape, handing them to the staff. "That's Ranger," he said softly. "He saved me twice, once in the woods and once in the hospital." The bond between them deepened into something everyone could feel, but no one could explain. It was as if the dog had decided his mission was not over until Noah was whole again. When the day of discharge finally came, the hospital staff gathered to say goodbye. Noah, now able to walk short distances with a brace, hugged Ranger tightly. His parents thanked the officer and the hospital staff through tears. But then, something happened that truly shocked everyone. As the officer clipped Ranger's leash and gave the command to follow, the dog refused. He sat firmly at Noah's side, eyes locked on the boy. No amount of coaxing worked. Ranger whined and pressed his head into Noah's lap, tail thumping the floor. The room fell silent. Even the officer, hardened by years of service, swallowed hard. It was clear Ranger had made his choice. After a flurry of conversations and paperwork, the police department made a rare decision. Because Ranger had reached retirement age and because of his extraordinary bond with Noah, they approved his transfer to the family. Ranger would no longer be a working canine, but a permanent companion. When Noah heard the news, he burst into tears, hugging the dog with all the strength he had. The hospital erupted in applause. It wasn't just a policy change. It was a testament to the power of loyalty and love. Weeks later, neighbors would see Noah and Ranger walking slowly down their street. The boy's step steady and determined, the dog's ears alert but relaxed. The boy who once lay broken in a hospital bed was now rebuilding his life with his rescuer at his side. And Ranger, once just a highly trained canine, had become a hero, a therapist, and a best friend. Their story inspired donations to the hospital's new animal-assisted therapy program, sparking a movement that would help countless other children heal. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment below. Tell us how it made you feel and what kindness or loyalty means to you. And don't forget to subscribe to Positive Tales for more real stories of hope, courage, and the incredible bonds between animals and people. Special request to comment. Share in the comments if you've ever witnessed or experienced an animal's loyalty changing someone's life. You never know whose heart your story might touch.